I've seen plenty of weird shit in my 15 years commanding deep-sea research vessels, but nothing quite like this. The sonar reading made absolutely no sense. At 12,000 feet down in the Puerto Rico Trench, where there should be nothing but crushing darkness and maybe some tube worms clustered around thermal vents, the Nereid's instruments were picking up what looked like a massive geometric structure. Not just any structure either, something that stretched for miles across the ocean floor, with regular patterns and what appeared to be lights. "Run it again, Martinez," I told my sonar operator, leaning over his shoulder to stare at the impossible readout. The young technician's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the controls. 3 months into his first deep-sea assignment, and he was already questioning everything he'd learned in marine biology school. "Same reading, Captain Davis. It's definitely artificial. The geometric patterns are too regular to be natural rock formations, and the electromagnetic signatures—" He paused, double-checking his instruments. "Captain, there are active power sources down there. Lots of them." Dr. James Reeves, our expedition's marine archaeologist, nearly choked on his coffee. He'd joined this mission expecting to catalog some new species of deep-sea creatures, maybe find some interesting mineral formations. Ancient civilizations weren't supposed to exist at depths where the pressure would crush a human body in milliseconds. That's impossible. No known civilization could have built anything at that depth. The pressure alone would be 1,500 times greater than at sea level, I finished. I'd heard the physics lecture 100 times, but the readings didn't lie, and my instruments were military grade, calibrated just last month. "Prep the Triton for descent. We're going down for a closer look." The Triton was our deep submersible, rated for depths up to 20,000 feet. As we descended through the layers of ocean, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with this whole situation. I'd been exploring the deep ocean long enough to trust my instincts, and right now, every instinct was screaming at me to surface and head back to port. But scientific curiosity is a hell of a drug. The deeper we went, the more detailed the structure became on our instruments. What we were seeing defied every rule of underwater archaeology. The city, and it was definitely a city, sprawled across the ocean floor like some impossible dream. Towering spires reached up through the water column, connected by graceful bridges and walkways. And everywhere, those lights. Soft, bioluminescent glows that pulsed gently in patterns that almost seemed purposeful. "Jesus Christ," whispered Martinez from his position at the controls. Through the Triton's thick viewing ports, we could see the first buildings coming into view. The architecture was unlike anything in human history. Flowing, organic curves that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural rock formations. Yet, clearly artificial, clearly designed by some form of intelligence. Dr. Reeves was frantically taking notes, his scientific training warring with his disbelief. The preservation is incredible. Whatever built this, the materials they used must be completely resistant to water damage and pressure. We're looking at technology that's centuries ahead of anything we have. The city stretched out before us in the submersible's lights, vast and eerily beautiful. Streets that followed the contours of the ocean floor, buildings that seemed to grow from the rock itself. And those lights, those damn lights, pulsing in slow, hypnotic rhythms. I found myself strangely drawn to them, as if they were calling to something deep in my brainstem. "Captain," Martinez's voice was tight with excitement. "I'm picking up movement. There are structures opening and closing, almost like breathing." We spent hours exploring, taking samples, recording everything. The city appeared completely deserted, yet somehow maintained. The power sources that fed those countless lights hummed with quiet efficiency. Airlocks and chambers suggested the builders had been air-breathing creatures. Yet, the engineering required to create pressurized spaces at this depth was beyond human capability. In what appeared to be a residential district, Dr. Reeves made the discovery that would change everything. Hidden in a structure that resembled a combination of library and living space, he found something that made my blood run cold. A journal, if you could call it that. The writing was in no human language, but attached was what appeared to be a crude translation device. The final entries, when fed through our computer's linguistic analysis software, told a story that turned my understanding of our situation completely upside down. The translation was rough, full of gaps, but the meaning was clear enough. The writer described themselves as the last inhabitant of their great city, the final guardian of their civilization's greatest achievement. They wrote about the long years of solitude, maintaining the systems that kept their city functioning. But as I read deeper, I realized the writer wasn't describing a city at all. "My duty is almost complete," one entry read. "The lure has been active for 3 cycles now. The smaller prey have been numerous, the silver swimmers and the tentacled ones. But we wait for the great prize, the thinking creatures from the surface world." The entries became increasingly disturbing. The writer described their home not as a city, but as the crown jewel, the ultimate lure. They wrote about the great body that held their city, the vast intelligence that dreams in the depths, while its lure calls to prey from across the ocean. "The outsiders will come," another entry stated with chilling certainty. "They always do. The lights call to them. The perfect architecture draws their curiosity. They explore. They marvel. They try to understand. And when enough have gathered, when the catch is worth the effort, the Ancient One will feed." My hands were shaking as I read the final entries. The writer described hearing sounds from above their city, not from the ocean above, but from something vast and alive that surrounded them. Breathing, heartbeats that lasted for hours, the slow, patient waiting of something unimaginably large. The last entry was barely coherent. 3 of the thinking creatures have come in their metal shell. They explore our streets. They take our treasures. The Ancient One stirs. I feel the great body shifting. The time of feeding approaches. I can hear it now, the sound I have dreaded and anticipated for so long, the sound that means my vigil is ending. And then, in handwriting that grew progressively more erratic, I hear the jaw opening. I looked up from the translation, my face white with sudden understanding. I thought about our descent, about how the city had appeared on our sonar like a massive geometric pattern, about how the lights pulsed in such perfect, hypnotic rhythms, about how the entire structure seemed almost too perfect, too inviting, like it was designed specifically to attract curious explorers. "Martinez," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "bring up the wide-angle sonar, maximum range. I want to see everything around us." The young technician's fingers flew over the controls. The image that appeared on our screens made all 3 of us fall silent. The city wasn't built on the ocean floor. It was suspended, held aloft by what appeared to be a massive stalk or antenna that disappeared into the darkness above us. And surrounding that stalk, barely visible at the edge of our sonar's range, was something so vast that our instruments couldn't map its full outline. Dr. Reeves was the first to understand. His voice came out as a croak. "Anglerfish. It's a goddamn anglerfish." But not just any anglerfish. This creature was the size of a mountain, a living fossil from the deepest trenches of the ocean. Its bioluminescent lure wasn't a simple light. It was an entire city, a masterwork of evolutionary deception designed to attract intelligent prey. The perfect bait for curious surface dwellers who couldn't resist investigating impossible underwater civilizations. My training kicked in. Emergency ascent now. But as Martinez's hands moved toward the controls, the lights around us began to pulse faster. The gentle, hypnotic rhythm that had seemed so beautiful moments before now felt sinister, urgent. And from somewhere in the darkness above us came a sound that had never been heard by human ears. The groan of ancient joints moving, of a jaw the size of a city block beginning to open. The water around us started to move, a current that pulled gently but insistently toward the darkness above. We weren't just in a city, we were in a mouth. The buildings, the streets, the perfect architecture, all of it was built on the tongue of something that had been waiting in the deep places of the earth since before humans learned to make fire. "The ascent systems aren't responding," Martinez reported, panic creeping into his voice. "Something's interfering with our controls." Through the viewing ports, we could see other lights moving in the darkness. Not the steady glow of the city's lures, but the quick, desperate flashing of emergency beacons. Other submersibles, other research vessels that had been drawn to this impossible place. How many explorers had been lured here over the decades? How many vessels rested in the belly of this ancient thing, their crews long since digested? Dr. Reeves was still clutching the translated journal, his scientific mind trying to process the impossible. The writer, they weren't the city's inhabitant, they were like us, previous explorers who got trapped here. The city maintains itself, it's part of the creature. The journal entries, they're warnings left by everyone who came before us. The current was growing stronger now, pulling us inexorably upward toward the opening maw. I could see the edges of it now, massive structures that I had mistaken for architectural features, but were actually teeth. Teeth the size of skyscrapers, adapted not for cutting, but for trapping, for ensuring that whatever entered this mouth would never leave. "The emergency beacon," I ordered. "Send out everything, our location, what we found, all of it. If we don't make it out, maybe someone else will understand the warning." Martinez's fingers flew over the communications array, broadcasting our discovery to the surface. But even as he worked, we all knew it was too late. The current was too strong now, the submersible's engines too weak to fight against the suction of something that could swallow city blocks. In my final moments as captain of the Nereid, I realized the true horror of our situation. The creature wasn't just a predator, it was an artist. It had spent millions of years perfecting its lure, creating not just light, but an entire civilization, so beautiful, so perfectly designed to attract intelligent, curious prey that no exploring species could resist investigating. And somewhere in the darkness above us, in the vast neural networks of something older than human civilization, the creature was already dreaming, already planning how to improve its city, how to make it even more irresistible to the next batch of curious surface dwellers who would inevitably come looking for the research vessel that had vanished without a trace in the Puerto Rico Trench. The lights of the city pulsed once more, a gentle, welcoming rhythm that would wait patiently in the deep places until the next explorers arrived. And in the archives of that impossible library, a new journal would begin, written in shaking handwriting by whoever survived long enough to understand what they had found. The first entry would be the same as always. We thought we had discovered a lost civilization. We were wrong. We are the civilization that is about to be lost.